Welcome to ProstVendorTraining. My name is Mike Damewood. We are going to go over the Prost application and what it is and how to get set up as a vendor. Today we should be covering the material in about an hour. And if you have questions, please hold them to the end. Everybody's currently on mute, but at the end of the demonstration, I will unmute everyone, and then we can kind of have a conversation around your questions and anything that we did not cover. So just let's go ahead and get started. So welcome to Prost Training. What is Prost? Prost stands for Probation Offender Services Tracking. In the past, we had limited view on what kind of funds were being spent and where. And so it was our hope that by putting all the information in one place and getting them off of Word documents and getting them off of Excel spreadsheets and putting them in one application, we could track vouchers and invoices, not lose anything in the process, and then also report on those funds being spent by the state. So what we're going to cover now is we're going to go into the process of how a voucher becomes approved and then it shows up in your inbox. So a probationer will meet with a probation officer after they're put on probation by the courts. And when they are talking with the probation officer has discretion to spend certain types of funds for the probationer to make sure that the probationer can complete their terms of probation. We don't want $10 or $100 to be the difference between somebody successfully completing their program and not. So things like helping out with paying for drug tests, bus passes, even shoes for job interviews, things like that. Those are the kinds of services and products that Offender Services was set up for, and helping those probationers complete probation. When they meet with their probation officer and if they need a certain service and help with that, the probation officer would create a voucher. In the past, what they would do is they might write it up on a piece of paper, or they might create a Word document, print that out, give it to their supervisor to be approved, and then give it to the probationer to go to the vendor and get that service. The process is very similar, except we are using the application to do that. This particular process that we're looking at here is the probation process for the 10th District in Pueblo. We've been doing a pilot program with them for about 2 months. This system is going live in the first week in July. So that's the reason that a lot of districts and probation admins are sending out emails, trying to get everybody signed up into the system so that when their probation officers create the vouchers, they will show up in your inbox and can be processed. Once a voucher is created and approved by the supervisor, not all districts do that. In the 10th, they have a supervisor approved, but in like Denver, they don't. Different districts will do it slightly different ways, but this is a pretty good process for everybody. Once a voucher is completely approved, it will be sent to the vendor's inbox, your guys' inbox inside the Prost application. The probationer will then show up at your doorstep looking for that service or product. They may have a printout of the voucher, they may not, just depending on, again, the different districts or the different process that are put in place for each vendor. Either way, it doesn't really matter if they have a printout or not. You can log on to the Prost system and check that probationer's name and see if they've got a voucher set up in the system. As a vendor, you would go ahead and provide that service or product. You would mark on the voucher what date that happened and then any additional comments that you want. In the 10th District, what they're doing is that they're asking vendors to kind of collect those vouchers throughout the entire month, and then at the end of the month, put those vouchers on an invoice and submit the invoice all at once. Depending on the district and depending on your relationship with the probation department, if you've been submitting invoices throughout the month rather than waiting until the end of the month, and you're wondering if that's going to change, I would check with the probation department and see if that's going to change or not. Most likely they'll say just keep doing it the same way, but we'll just put it in this application. Once you have submitted an invoice, whether it's throughout the month or at the end of the month, the probation department collects all the invoices from all vendors together and puts them into the core state payment system. The core payment system is the system that actually cuts the checks, and that is determined by a database of vendors that that the state has been paying for many, many years. So this application that we're looking at today is not a payment system. It's just an invoicing and a vouchering system. So however you're currently paid today, whether it's electronic credit or debit or by paper check, you're still going to be paid the same way because the payment system isn't changing. What we're doing is we're just adding a little bit of tracking on the front end to track and keep aware of the movement of money through the vouchers and the invoices in the system. In the 10th district, when that probation department admin creates the payment file and the core payment system, the chief probation officer actually goes into the payment system and approves that payment. And once he does that, then the check is actually cut and sent. I think every 2 days or in 2 days of time after that approval. In different districts, the chief may not go into core and approve those payments. So the process may be a little bit different, but whenever those payments are fully approved, that's when those checks are sent from that system. Again, the system doesn't have anything to do with that. The system just keeps track of the vouchers and the invoice before that payment file is created. So all you really have to worry about is logging into the system, filling out the service dates on a voucher, and then using the system to invoice the state whenever you're ready to do that. All right. So let's talk a little bit about how you get set up in the system. So the system is an invite-only system, so it's not like Hotmail or Gmail where you would log in at a web page. The probation department will add your business to Prost, and when they do that, it will send you a welcome email, which looks like this. So the welcome email is only sent once per business. It's sent to the first person that is the main contact for your business. The welcome email allows that person to activate the account and then log into Prost. Every person in your organization does not need a welcome email, only that first person to get you guys in the door and to activate your account. Once the account is activated, that first person can then log into the system and set up additional users. So we only set up everybody one time, and then if you need additional logins, you can do that when you log into the system for the first time. The welcome email that we send out when your business is first added to the system is pretty straightforward. This is an example of what one looks like. Just says, hello, Bob Jones. You've been invited to be a vendor for Colorado Probation Department is Prost system. Click the link to continue. When you click that link, it will direct that person to an account verification page, which looks like this. We already have all of your information, so we pretty much enter everything in here for you. But what we're asking you to do is just verify that it's all correct. So this first person is the person for your organization that's first going to log in. And in this case, you can see it says Bob Jones, and then it has an email address here. We ask that person to choose a password of sufficient complexity. The complexity is all listed on there on the page. And also choose a security question. What the security question is for is to give you a secret passphrase when you call in the IT department. We have a help desk that is answering calls and answering emails that are creating tickets in our ticketing system. But just to make sure that we don't give out the wrong information to a different vendor, we want to make sure we know who we're talking to, and that's the point of this security question. The security question just happens to be, what was your first car? It sounds like a lot of other security questions you might have run into when you sign up on a bank website. But this one is just, what is your first car? It could either be your first car or it could be your dream car, whatever works best for you. We're just going to ask you that when you call into the IT department. So the last bit of information we ask you to verify here is your vendor information, which would be the name of your business, phone number, email address, and mailing address. The email address next to the company name is best thought of as a general contact email. We currently aren't sending out emails from the system, but in the future we may start doing that. And so if there is an email address like customer support or front desk at your business, you can put that in here next to the vendor. The email address at the top next to that person's name is their actual email address. That's the email address they're going to use when they're ready to log into the system. Everybody has to have a unique email address, so Bob Jones and Mary Jones can't use the same email address. The email address is what makes that login unique. So after you go ahead and confirm your account information, there is a save button at the top of the page. It's right here. It just looks like a little save disk icon. When you save your account information, then it's going to activate your business and allow you to log in. Once you do that, you will actually be able to log into the system using your email address and password, and that is where we'll be demoing for the majority of this presentation. So the first time that you log in, you'll be directed to this web page after you log in. And it asks you just to log in with your email address and password. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Test for work. And if you forget your password, there is a forgot password link right there on the home page. So if you ever need to reset your password, it's really easy. It's just right there at the login page. When you log into the system, you're going to see a blank home page. The application is being developed with a Scrum Agile mindset, which means build the most important things first and then add bells and whistles on later. So in the future, this home page will probably have alerts or maintenance messages that say the system might be going down at midnight to 1 a.m. on this day. It might show you the most recent vouchers that are coming in on this page. We really haven't decided exactly what we're putting on the home page yet, but in the future we'll be adding information on this page that will be useful to you. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a little picture of a person. If you click on that, it just tells you who's logged in, and it lets you get to your My Profile page to update your information if you need to, or you can log out of the system. The majority of what you're going to be doing now is going to be from the home menu, and the home menu is just these three horizontal lines in the upper left-hand corner next to Colorado Judicial Probation. So I'm going to click that, and what you'll see here is it says Prost. So I'm going to click Prost. And the first thing that you'll want to do after you activate your account is set up your services. So I'm going to go Prost, Preferences, Services Provided. And if you only have one location, your list of services will immediately appear on this page. If the admin has set you up with multiple locations, then you will need to select the location from your list here. Currently, we don't need to know every single location that you guys provide services at. Mainly the locations that we're interested in currently are those places that we're going to be sending checks to. a place that gets a check sent to it has a specific address code in our payment system. So if we add 2 places where you might receive checks, those will have different address codes, so we can actually send the checks to different places. But if you say have 1 billing location, but then 6 service locations, we're only going to set up the billing location because that's actually where we're going to be sending checks to. The service locations at this time aren't needed. In the future, we may add some additional functionality onto the system that will be a treatment referral system. And if we do that, and when we do that, then we would need to add those additional service locations. But right now, we're just talking about locations where you might receive those checks from. So for my test vendor, I'm just going to select this one Main Street. And it's going to show me my list of services. When the list of services come up, it's best to think of these lists of services as like set service categories. Each service category actually comes from a different pot of money that Judicial has gotten from the state legislature. So where you see it on the screen where it says assessment for domestic violence or assessment for a sex offender adult or juvenile, basically what that means is like if you have a bunch of assessments that fall under this category, it's going to be pulling that money from that particular pool of money. If we go down here to drug testing, you'll notice there's a drug testing that would pull from a different pool of money. But these are best thought of as service categories. If you only provided one type of drug test and you only had one price point, what you would select in services provided is you can just select drug testing and say, all my drug tests are $35, for example. However, if you have multiple different types of drug testing, or you have a drug test that has several different price points, what you can do is you can just select drug testing, actually leave the cost blank, and then when you save these services, they're going to be sent to the probation department, and they will go ahead and set up those specific drug tests for you, or those specific different price points. So the services that you have to enter here is very light. You don't really have to enter in, 100 different services. You just need to enter in the general services or service categories that your business will be providing. So once you select your services, and it could be one or multiple, you would just click the Save icon in the upper right-hand corner. And once you've saved that, those services will be saved, and then it will be up to the probation department admin to approve those services and those prices and add you to their district. So one question I got before in a different webinar was, I work in multiple districts. How do I get set up in multiple districts? So the way it works is the first person or first admin in the first district that sets up your business enters in all of your information. You get the welcome email where you approve your account and set up your services, but you only have to do that one time, because after the first time that you set up your business, if there's another district that needs to add you as well, they can go in, see that you've already been added, and then add you to their district as well. So you don't really have to go through a ton of setup, 50 different times for 50 different services and 4 times for different districts. All you guys need to do is activate your account and set up services that first time. Once you've filled out your services, some have asked, so what's the next step? Really, the next step is for the probation admin to approve those services and add you to their district. They should be kind of going through the vendors that are signing up and signing up those vendors that work in their districts. If you'd like to be a little bit proactive, after you have activated your account and after you have set up these services, you can contact the probation admin and ask them to be added to their district. You probably already know who you work with from the probation department, so you can just contact that person. But if you're not sure, you can send an email or call IT support, and we can help you get in contact with those individuals. So here, what you can see here is these are the admin specialists for the probation departments in all the districts. So districts 1 through 22. The second district, which is Denver, actually has it's split into adult and juvenile. So again, you probably already have a contact at the probation department that you have worked with and are comfortable working with. If that's the case, continue working with that person. But if you work in the 17th and 18th district and you're not sure who that is, you can contact us and we can tell you, oh, that's Nicole Austin or Megan Hennington in that particular example. And then if you work in certain counties, we can also match those up with those individuals as well. Okay. So once you fill in your services provided, then you just need to be added to the different districts. When you're added to a district, that is when the probation officer sitting down in front of his or her computer can then log in, search for services, and start sending you vouchers for different probationers. And we're going to do that next here. I'm going to show you how these vouchers are created. So you can kind of see a little bit how it looks on their side. So when a probation officer logs into the system, they just log in on our internal site, which looks like this. And they go to Prost, Voucher, Create Voucher. And they would just select the probationer that is sitting in front of them. So I've been doing my testing in Stage, which is our test environment, our test website, and I'm using this particular probationer. This is a test website I'm showing you guys today, so it's a little bit slower than what you'll see in production on the live website. And you'll also see some funny names in here too, like this probationer I work with is Olive Oil. I think there's a Popeye in here too. But so as a probation officer, I search for my probationer. I say, yes, I'm going to create a voucher for Olive. She needs some assistance. And when the voucher comes up, what you'll see at the top of the page is a header. And that's going to be on your side too. When you look at the voucher details, you'll see the probationer, their state or ML number, the date the voucher was created, their mailing address, date of birth, their phone number, and you'll also see the probation officer name, their phone number, and their email address. So if you have a question about any of these vouchers that come in, or the probationer is telling you one thing and it doesn't sound right, you'll be able to just look at the voucher, see who their probation officer is, and give them a call right away, or send them an email. So continuing on with this particular demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and create a voucher. I'll say this is an adult regular case type. I'm going to search for vendors. And I'm just going to pick this one. This vendor is the one I'm testing with. And I'm going to say this particular person has a breathalyzer that they need to take. I'm going to say that's going to be $50. And they also need a place to stay. So I'm going to say that there's some emergency housing. And we'll say there's $200 for that. And if this person needed to take, let's say, multiple breathalyzers throughout the month, or they're coming to group multiple times, you can actually change they can actually change the quantity here as well. So you can see this is $50 times 4, $200, and then $200 for that housing. At the bottom, you can see here the total is $400 for that. So as they build the voucher and add services, it builds up that that voucher for that probationer. And if they have a supervisor that needs to approve their vouchers, they can go ahead and do that.
So they're teaching the probation people how to create vouchers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're doing here is we're just showing you guys what it looks like on the probation officer's side, how they create a voucher, so that you know how it is created and sent to you. Let's go ahead. I just want to make sure that those vouchers I just created are fully approved so that we can play with them on the vendor side.
Shouldn't, but
Okay, it looks like they are. So we've created 2 vouchers, some for some breathalyzer and for that emergency housing. So I'm going to take off my probation officer hat and I'm going to put back on my vendor hat. When you receive a voucher in your probation voucher inbox, you can then log into the system, go to Prost, voucher, and then voucher inbox. And you can see here's some vouchers for different types of assessments, $50, $25, etc. So in order to use one of these, let's say that I have a probationer, they just walk through the door, they have a paper voucher, and I just want to check that indeed that's in the system. Or if they don't have a piece of paper, I can just log into the system and look them up by name. Up at the top, there's a little down arrow, which is a filter, and you can filter based on date, name, voucher number, invoice number, or status. You can also filter by district, so if you're getting vouchers from a lot of different areas, you can sort those by 10th District, 7th, 2nd, Denver Juvenile, etc. And when you filter those vouchers, they'll just show up down here. So let's say somebody just walked in, olive oil for $50, and I want to go ahead and use this voucher. If I want to see the details of this voucher, I can just click on that number, 6199, and it's going to show me that voucher information. It shows me that header information I was talking about earlier. It's going to show me what fiscal year this one was made. So the fiscal year ends at the end of June every year for us. So this was for this year. And then this particular one is for an assessment for domestic violence. It was approved for $50. If I wanted to print a voucher, when I'm looking at the detail screen, that's real easy to do. There is a print icon in the upper right-hand corner. It looks like a little printer. I'm going to click on that to show you what that does. That just loads up a printable view of the voucher. The voucher can be printed on a printer, or most Windows and Apple computers these days allow you to save as PDF. So if you want to print these vouchers out and get them out of the system and put them in a filing cabinet, you can just print it off on your printer. If you want to save space in your filing cabinet or not buy one, you could save the details off as a PDF and just save all these vouchers under different file names on a folder on your computer, which just saves you a little space and saves a tree. So either way you want to do it, you can print this information out and get a hard copy or a PDF. Whenever you open something in Prost, what it does is it opens it up in a new tab. So if I want to get off the detail voucher screen, I can just go up here and close the current tab that I'm in. And you'll see that it drops me back into that probation voucher inbox. Okay, so we're back here in the inbox. If we want to go ahead and use this voucher, all you got to do is select it, and you have two options at this point. You can enter the service dates for the voucher and leave these vouchers just sitting in your inbox, or if you want to enter the service dates on these vouchers and then begin creating the invoice as a draft and then use that throughout the entire month, you can do it that way too. So in this example, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and say, yeah, this voucher I want to use, and I want to go ahead and start the invoice so that I have it. I'm going to select the voucher, and the middle button in the upper right-hand corner is the Create Voucher icon. It looks like a piece of paper with a plus symbol in it. So if I click that, and basically what this is asking is this is saying, okay, I'm starting to create the invoice. If I want to give it a name or a number, I can. Those are both optional fields, but what they might be used for is you might say October 2018 invoices so that you can refer to this later. Invoice number, that's like a QuickBooks number or an accounting program. So if you want to export the information out of the system at a later date and be able to match this up with your accounting software, you can do that. So I just put in QuickBooks. QuickBooks number there. And then if I scroll down, I'll see that first voucher line. And I'm going to change the size of my browser a little bit just so that you can see all the fields on this. So the only information that you need to provide when using a voucher is the service date that it was performed. If you want to add an additional description of service, you can do that. So maybe this person came in for Group A at 8 a.m. And then the next thing is you can either save or submit the invoice. So you've went ahead and entered the service date on the voucher. You're starting to create the invoice. If you're going to save this invoice throughout the entire month and then just submit it at the end of the month, you can just click Save, and that creates a draft invoice. After we save that invoice, I'll show you what changes in the inbox to let you know that that is now part of the invoice. So you can see here, my voucher inbox is now refreshed. In that very first line, it shows that invoice started. So it's a change from an approved status, which is what it is when it first gets into your inbox, and it's changed to invoice started status, so you know that a service date has been added and you've started the process of putting that on invoice. You can also see the invoice ID column now has a number in it. So now that it's part of an invoice, if you click on the invoice number, you're going to see the details of that invoice, very similar to the voucher. It just shows you the header information at the top, all the lines of the vouchers, line items that are on that invoice, and then a total amount. Similarly to the voucher, if you need to print this page, you can. There's a print icon in the upper right-hand corner, and you can print this off or save it as PDF, just like the voucher. I'm going to go ahead and close this tab so I can go back to my inbox. So the next thing I want to show you real quick is what happens if we have 4 people come in, or let's say 3 people come in, and we want to fill out all their service dates, but we don't want to be going into every single one of these. What you can do is you can select multiple vouchers at a time. Let's say these are all for Olive and her 2 brothers, Olive and John and Sam. So I'm going to select all 3 probationers, and then I'm going to go ahead and select the service date at the top of the screen. And I'll just choose today's date that came in today. And then let's say this was Group B. It would be afternoon class, 1:30 p.m. And now if I want to save that information to these vouchers, I can just click the Save icon in the upper right-hand corner, and it'll save the information from the top of the screen down to those 3 vouchers. And basically what this is just another way to organize vouchers. Like I said, you can add the service date to a voucher and be putting it on an invoice throughout the month, or you can just be filling out the service dates on the vouchers as they come in the door. So for these 3 vouchers that we just worked on, you can see now they all have a service date. They all came in for group B because that was the description I used, but they don't have an invoice number because I wasn't actually attaching them to an invoice just yet. If I want to do that, what I can do is I can just select them again, select that create invoice icon in the upper right-hand corner, and now I can actually add these to that invoice. If I wanted to create a brand new invoice, you can see up here now it has a radio button, new or existing. If I just click save now, it would create a second draft invoice. If I want to use that same one that we had before though, I can just click on use existing invoice, and then I have a drop-down box for previous invoices in here to add these vouchers to it. So I'll say, yes, I'm going to add these 3 to that October 2018 I had just created. I'm going to go ahead and check that, yes, I have service dates on all of them. You'll also notice a field here that says amount to reduce by. That's actually a feature we added after the pilot. We got feedback from a couple of the vendors that they don't always invoice for the full amount. So if that's the case for you, that sometimes you don't invoice for the full voucher amount, maybe it was for $50, but you are only invoicing for $40. You just go ahead and put in $10 there and then give a reason why. Maybe either insurance is paying part of it, maybe they're paying for part of it, maybe it's a sliding scale. So you can select one of those for the reason why you're reducing it. Let's say on the second one, I'm going to reduce it by $5, but none of these options make sense to me, so I'm just going to click Other. And if I do that, then I can actually just type in my reason here. We'll say Other Reasons. And I'm going to click Save again. And when I do that, we'll take a look at what happens. Okay, so now we can see that the status on those vouchers has changed just like the one before, and we can also see we've added those 4 vouchers to that invoice 494 that we had before. If I clicked on that, we would see the header, and then we would see those line items. If any amounts were reduced, you'll see that on the invoice too. So this one was originally $50, but it was reduced by $10. This one was $25, but it was reduced by $5, and the reason why. At the bottom of the invoice, you'll see that the total is a running total, so it just adds up the additional vouchers and any amounts that were reduced by. It takes that into account as well. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and create another voucher and show you the other buttons that we have there. So let's say I'm going to add this one to a different voucher because it's maybe a different group. I'm going to click on it, click Create Voucher. I just want to send it in for payment right away. Instead of using that Save button, I can use the Submit button. And what that does is that creates the invoice, finalizes it, and actually sends it to the probation department to be sent. The buttons down there are explained with this blue text right here in case you forget or you have somebody that's new to the job. It just explains right down here what these are for. So if I click Submit, show you what happens, I get this red error message. Oops, I forgot to fill out my service date. So I'm just going to go ahead, fill in that service date, that piece of information we need, and I'm going to click Submit again, and it goes ahead and takes that one. And after it refreshes, we'll take a look at how that one looks compared to the others. So we can see now that we have the invoices here and the vouchers that we've attached to them. And we can see that instead of invoice started, that is now an invoice submitted status. So this invoice has been fully created and submitted for payment. When these invoices are accepted by the probation department, the status changes again to invoice accepted. So basically, you don't have to call or email to find out the status of an invoice. You can just look in the system here, and it'll show you every step of the way, whether it's been created, started, submitted, accepted, and then finally paid. And I'll show you that when we're looking at the invoice screen. All right, I'm going to create another invoice here so we have another sample one to play with. Quick. I fill out my service dates. I'm going to click Save. And you notice I didn't fill out an invoice name or number that time. Like I said before, that is an optional field. If you don't give the invoice a name, then we just refer to that invoice by the next number in the sequence of numbers. So it'll just count up 494, 495, et cetera. Okay, so you can see here now that I have two vouchers, one 494 and one 495. They are in different statuses, and you can see the vouchers attached to them. If you need to download this information, you can use this icon in the upper right-hand corner, which looks like a little down arrow. Clicking that downloads an Excel spreadsheet of what you currently see in your inbox. So you can download or print out the details of a voucher or an invoice, or if you want to print something out at a more high level, you can go in your voucher inbox, click that little down arrow, and it's going to download into an Excel file the vouchers that are currently in your inbox. So I'm going to click on that, and you can see this is just an Excel data dump of that information that was in my inbox. So if you want to work on these outside the system, you can do that. If you want to filter your inbox, let's say just look at this month's vouchers and then find out what the total is for that. The way you can do that is you can, in your voucher inbox, you can put a start date and end date, let's say of this month. So 06/01/2018 to 6/30/2018. You can click search, and it'll only show you the vouchers that are in the current month. When you select the down arrow, it'll download that information into this Excel spreadsheet. And this Excel spreadsheet is a CSV file, which just means that it's unformatted, but it's pretty easy to format. To format this, just delete the first column, delete that. And if you want to expand these columns so that you can read it, just select the worksheet, double click between two of the columns, and now you can see here I can start to read this data out of the system. You can just highlight the first row. And so this is a really easy way that you can start formatting this data. Column E is the amount column. So if you wanted to, total up the vouchers that you got for that month, if you just highlight the column in Excel and then look at the lower right-hand corner, you can see here that Excel is telling me $5,805.25 is the total amount for all these vouchers. I can also see, who the probation officer was, and what type of service it was, and what status they're in. So this kind of just gives you a quick way to download all those vouchers at once. Okay. So the next step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the invoice inbox. Then we will talk about a little bit about security and how to add users. And then after we do all that, we will go ahead and open it up for questions. Everybody's on mute right now so that we can all hear the presentation. But as we're wrapping up, I will go ahead and unmute everyone. And if you have questions, we can talk about them on the line. So 90% of your work is going to be in the voucher inbox because that's where you fill out that service date that we need. That's where you start the process of creating the invoices. So this is really the majority of the screen that you would be in for this system. If you want to look at your invoices, for example, these are ones that are attached to ones that we've submitted. This one is a draft invoice. We can go over to our invoice inbox, which is just in our menu, Prost, invoice inbox. And here we can see the invoices we created. The one thing that you might use the invoice inbox for over the voucher inbox is if you create a draft invoice and you are adding vouchers through it to the end of the month, and you are ready to submit it, if you need to add another voucher to that draft invoice, you would just go to that voucher inbox, add it, and then click submit instead of save. But if, let's say, you have a draft invoice, you've started it, you've added a bunch of vouchers to it, it's the end of the month, you're just ready to close it out, what you can do is you can just go into your invoice inbox because that's where it lives, and you can look at the different statuses here. So here we can see that this is one that says started, which means that it's been started but not submitted. And if we're just ready to close that one out, we can just select that first row. And in the upper right-hand corner, there is an icon which looks like a paper airplane. You just click the paper airplane icon, and then that will submit that invoice for payment. And this screen is very similar to the voucher inbox. It looks very similar. If you need to pull up the details of an invoice, you would just click on the hyperlinked number next to it. If you need to look up that QuickBooks number that you are filling out or the names that you are giving it, you can also see that that's shown here too. So there's the October 2018 invoices. Here's my QuickBooks numbers that I have here. These are the different statuses that it's in. I'm just going to sort this by invoice ID to get the newest at the top. So you can see there's some that are in submitted status, which means that I've created it and it's waiting to be approved by the probation department. This one says canceled. No invoices are ever canceled without your permission. Basically what that means is if there's an issue with an invoice, let's say you sent an invoice in and the amount was incorrect, or the probationer, was on warrant or he was in jail, so that service isn't valid. What can happen is the probation admin can ask you a question about that and start a cancellation process. Let's say the wrong date was filled out. They'll say, we have a problem with this particular invoice. And when that happens, if you look in your invoice inbox and you see these little orange flags next to it, what these orange flags are for is this is just to bring your attention to a particular invoice. So it says it was submitted, but it has one of these orange boxes, which means there's a question about it. I'm going to click on respond. And you can see here that it starts a conversation thread basically about this invoice. The vendor, that's you guys, you submitted this on the 21st at 2:37 p.m. This is just a test one, but the administrator had a response on this. It'll show the date and time and then a message. This message might be, again, date is wrong, or probationer had absconded, and then you can respond to this. So you can either agree and cancel the invoice, or you can resubmit it. So if you're going to resubmit the invoice, you can just say resubmit, probationer disappeared, but showed up to group that day. So when you do that, click save, that just sends a message back to the probation department saying that, yeah, you've looked at it and you've responded. When you do that, that little orange flag next to that one, after you refresh that inbox, is going to go away because you've done something with it. Nothing else needs to be done. If you want to respond to the next one, if there's another one with this little orange flag, on this one, let's choose cancel invoice. So again, like the invoice doesn't ever cancel without your permission. Then you say, we're going to cancel this. Do you agree? And if you agree, you can say cancel invoice. No comment is needed at that point, and then you can click save. If an invoice is canceled, all the vouchers that are on that invoice will then become available to be used and put on a future invoice. So even if the invoice is canceled, you can always create a new invoice and then add them to another one. That's good for, let's say you're trying to keep these vouchers separated by groups or categories, and there's a mess up at some point. You can just cancel the invoice and then reattach all the vouchers to a new invoice that you create. So I'm going to click save. And so I've worked on these two, 475 and 476. And I'm just going to refresh the inbox just by clicking on that magnifying glass at the top of the screen. And then we'll look at the status of those invoices and just see how they changed. And like I said, this is our test system. So it's a little bit slower than what you're going to find in production, but and the reason for the olive oil names. After this refreshes, I'll go ahead and just sort these invoices again so that we can find these two. And we'll take a look at those. And we'll give it another half a minute here. There we go. So now I've got those invoices again. It's probably because you can see here that I was actually looking at invoices for the entire fiscal year. If you narrow that date range, that'll probably come back a lot quicker for you as well. That's just a little tip. So let's go back down to 475 and 476. 476, you can see it says submitted again, and it has no little orange box next to it. So that means that, yes, there was an issue with that one, but we did send that message back, and there's nothing to be done on that one. So that orange box goes away. And then on this one, the orange box goes away, but instead of sending a message back, we just agreed and canceled. So it goes ahead and updates that status to canceled. It removes those vouchers from the invoice and makes those available again for use. So those would then show up in your voucher inbox again, and which can be used again. All right, so that kind of covers the how to get in as a vendor, how to activate your account, set up services, a little bit about the voucher and invoice inbox. I'm just going to take a couple quick minutes to talk about security and how you might set up an additional person in the system if you need to. And then we're going to go ahead and take a break, and we will open it up for questions and go from there. So if you log into this account, but you need additional accounts set up, there's a really easy way to do that. up at the menu, you're going to see security. And if you click on that and click permissions, there's actually a user management screen that you have access to. The first person that logs onto the system has admin access, which means they have access to the vouchers, the invoices, setting up services, and setting up all your security. So if you need to create another user just like that one, because maybe you're going to go on vacation and you need somebody to backfill your position while you're out for a few days, you can create another user in the system and also create them as an admin. So I'm going to go to the user management screen. I just click that little magnifying glass at the top to refresh my screen. And you can see here I have 12 employees currently set up on this test vendor, myself and some other people. All of these people's records are unique based on their email address. So if you happen to have a couple employees that have the same name, that's okay, but their email address is what makes them unique, and that has to be different. So if you want to add a new user, on the user management screen, you would just come here and then click on the little icon in the upper right-hand corner, which looks like multiple people with a plus symbol. When I click that, you can see I have a screen here to add users. So I could say Joe Schmo and Joe Smo at email.com. And I might make him an admin. And say Sue Mary, ask Mary at gmail.com, and select permission. Once I do that, I can click save, and what this does is it will send them an email confirmation to their email address to verify that that email address is theirs. It's similar to the one that you clicked on initially when setting up your account. It just says, hey, let's verify your information, and click this link to verify that that email is correct. Choose a password, and once they do that, they'll be able to log into the system and view vouchers and invoices, etc. So that's a really quick way that you can set up additional users. You know, you can set up one user, or if you need to set up multiple users at a time, you can do that just by clicking the little plus icon on the screen and then clicking the save button. When you do that, it'll refresh the screen and it'll show you that those users are sitting here as part of your organization, and it'll show them as unconfirmed until they click the link in their email. So your account will show confirmed because you clicked that link, but anybody that you've added, until they click that link, they won't be able to log in. If you have a person that leaves your organization that you need to deactivate their account, you can also do that from the screen. So you can just select their name, select status, choose inactive to set their status, and then click the save button in the upper right-hand corner, which is that save disk icon again. So you can set up users and deactivate users from logging in all from this screen. If you need to change a person's permissions, you can do that from this screen as well. And I'll talk about permissions here in just a minute, how you set those up. But what you can see here is that the admin permission is the one that everyone starts out with their first account, but you can set up additional permissions. You can set up a security type or a user type of front desk or invoicing guru if a person in your organization does all the billing, but they're not going to do the vouchering. You can set up these different permissions, and when you have them set up, you just choose the permission, click set permission, and then the save icon again. And that will change their account status or their permissions in the system. Now let's talk a quick thing about permissions, and then I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. So if you go to the menu and go to Security, Profiles, Profile Management, this allows you to set up security profiles. Security profiles is sort of a computer term or an IT term. And the reason why we use security profiles or user types is, let's say you have 50 people in your organization and you don't want to set up their permissions 50 times. This way you can set up one type of user, like I said, front desk or billing, and then you can assign that permission to different users. So those 50 people, you could set it up one time and then assign them all at once. This screen allows you to call the permission something. So this is where you would say, oh, this is my front desk. And then if you scroll down the page, you'll see it has different screens. So setting up services, probably you don't want the person at the front desk changing what services you provide. So you skip that one. Under voucher, you might say, yes, they need to get into the voucher inbox and they need to be able to update it. But they don't need to do anything else. They don't need the invoicing. They don't need to be able to change their own permissions. So you would just click the permissions you want, click save, and then you've created a new permission. As I said, everybody starts with an admin permission, but if you want to create additional permissions that have a more limited set of permissions inside your business account, you can do that. Once you've set up your permissions, if you want to look at the ones you have set up, you can go to edit permissions. It's just a tab at the top of the screen. And you can choose the permissions that you have set up. So if the front desk person starts doing invoicing at a later date, you can go in here, choose front desk, and then change those permissions and give them additional ones if you want. Once you've changed the permissions, it's just like all the other screens. You can just click the save icon, and that will save those permissions for you. Again, if you need to change a person's permissions, if you go to My Profile, and you can get that by going to Security, My Profile, or you can click on the person icon in the upper right-hand corner and click on My Profile. If you only have one user, it'll just show that user's settings. But if you have multiple users, you just select the user you're wanting to look at. In this case, I'm going to look at myself. And you can see I have my name, my email address, password. So if I need to change any of this information about myself, I can. Let's say I don't want to talk about my first car anymore. I can just click the little pencil icon next to it, and I can change it to something else. Let's say maybe Lamborghini. That sounds a lot cooler. So this is just a way that you can get in and users can change their profile settings. All right, so what we've covered here today basically is we've covered it, how the process works, how do you get set up, how you fill in your services, how you use the voucher inbox and the invoice inbox, and then also set up some security as well. I'm going to go ahead and take a break here, and we will go ahead and start answering questions and talk on the phone. Thank you.